Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karunya Ghana Ganatvam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatvam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shringara Tanma Diramajanado Shri Vigrahara Juktasya Bhaktamsya Niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Swatana Triptan Hari Bhakta Shangan Chaturvidha Kridaiva Tripte Bhajata Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Radhikama Dabayara Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Shri Radhika Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Swa Dhanalopasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Nekunja Yono Rati Keli Siddhai Jajali Bheri Jokti Apekshaneya Nekunja Yono Rati Keli Siddhai Jajali Bheri Jokti Tatrati Dakya Ativalavasya Bande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam. Sakchadharitvena Shamastashrashri Uktastatha Bhavyataiva Sadhavi Sakchadharitvena Shashri Kintu Prabhoja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Vande Guru Shri Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Sado Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Dayam Stuvam Tasya Yasashtin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasastin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Vande Guru Shri Charanara Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatari Shatarine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatari Shata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Nityananda Gadadhara Shivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Chaitanya Nityananda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Shri Radha Damodari Ki Jai.
नमामीश्वरं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले भजमानम् यशोधाभियोलोकलाधवमानं परामृष्टमत्यन्ततो धृत्य गोप्या रुदन्तं मुहुर्नेत्रयुग्मं मृजन्तं कराम्भोजयुग्मेन शातङ्कनेत्रम् स्वासकाम्पात्रिरेकाङ्ककान्ता सितग्रैवं दामोदरं दामोदरं भक्तिबद्धम् इति दृक्स्वलीलाभिरानन्दकुण्डे स्वघोषं निमज्जन्तम् आख्यापयन्तम् तदीयेषिताग्नेषु भक्तर्जितत्वं पुनः प्रेमतस्त्वं शतवृत्तिवन्दे परं देवमोक्षं न मोक्षवदिं वा न चन्यमृणेऽहं वरेशादपीह इदं तेव पूर्णता गोपालबालम् सदा मे मनस्याविरस्तं किमन्ये हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare इदं ते मुकाम्भोजम् अत्यन्तनीलैः वृतं कुन्तलैः स्निग्धरक्तैश्च गोप्या मुहुश्चुम्बितं बिम्बरक्ताधरं मे मनस्याविरस्तमलं लक्ष्यलभे नमो देवदामोदरानन्त विष्णु प्रसीद प्रभु दुःखजलाब्धिमग्नम् कृपादृष्टिविषयाति दिनं बतानु ग्रहाणेश मामज्ञा मे दक्षिदृश कुबेरात्मजौ भद्रमुतैव यद्वा त्वया मोर्षितौ भक्तिभाजकृतौश्च तथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वकामे प्रयच्छ न मोक्षे ग्रहो मे दामोदरेह हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमस्ते स्तुधाम्ने स्फुरदीप्तिदाम्ने त्वदीयोदराय विश्वस्य धाम्ने नमो राधिकाय तदीया प्रियाय नमो अनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् नमो राधिकाय तदीया प्रियाय नमो अनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Radha Damodar Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Nilamada Shri Radhe Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Siramani Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhakti Data Patita Pavana His Divine Grace Abhay Charavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhari Ki Jai Shri Rup Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Satguru Swami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Kochi Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Prem Si Koho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Sari Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Premanama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandan Shriman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mavrinaya Avatari Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai Jugadharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihabndanga translated book distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Goputna Radha Kun Samakun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai Dear Lordship Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai Yashoda Damodar Mai Ki Jai Shri Mayapurna Madhupika Chakradham Ki Jai Parama Karuna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottam Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Srimati Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kani Shingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Vrinde Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Guru Shri Mathura Dharani Ki Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinde Ki Nitai Gaurari Pramanande All glory to the assembled bodies, all glory to the assembled bodies, all glory to the assembled bodies, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
Thank you. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Adadadadadayine Hiranyakasi Purvakshaha Silatan Kanakhalaye Ito Nasimha Bharato Nasimha Ito Nasimha Bharato Nasimha Yato yato yami tato Nasimha Bahe Nasimha Hrudaye Nasimha Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapadye Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubhranga Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jayo Narasimhadev, Jayo Narasimhadev, Narasimhadev, Jayo Narasimhadev. Jayo Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jayo Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitya Gaura Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo.
भक्ति पद सर्वविघ्नाश कनिष्ठिंगरे भगवान की जय। हे भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे। श्री वृंदये तुलसी बाई प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादेवे सत्वताय नमो नमः। वृंदये तुलसी बाई प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादेवे सत्वताय नमो नमः। वृंदये तुलसी बाई प्रिय के सब सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रादेवे सत्वताय नमो नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी। जो तो मार शरण लो तारा वंश पूर्ण हो। कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी। कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी। मोरा हे अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियो वास। नयन हरिबो सदा युगल रूप राशि। ए निवेदन धरो સખીરનુગત કોરો સેવાધિકાર દિયે કરો નિજ દાસી દીના કૃષ્ણદાસ કોઈ એ જે નમોરા હોય શ્રી રાધા ગોવિંદા પ્રેમે સદાય ન ભાષી શ્રી રાધા ગોવિંદા પ્રેમે સદાય ન ભાષી શ્રી રાધા ગોવિંદા પ્રેમે સદાય ન ભાષી यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ते प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ते प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी की
जय। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी भाई प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारंभे सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रियाय के सब सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रारंभे सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी बाई प्रियाय के सब सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रारंभे सतवताय नमो नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय। O Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower, carry damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise, may I always fame and love Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikyastakam ki jai. Chaito Darpanamajanam Bhava Mahadavani Nivapanam Shreyakari Vachandika Vitaranam Vidyabadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Padiparam Punamrita Sadhanam Sarvatma Paramparam Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amaninumanadena Kitanya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitamba Jagadishakamani Mama Janmani Janmaneshwari Bhavatar Bhakti Raitu Kitwai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Paritamam Visame Babam Buddho Kripaya Tava Pankaja Sitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galora Shudharaya Vadanam Gadagadrudaya Gira Urakaya Chitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavisati Jugaitam Nimishena Shakusha Prabhusaitam Sunyaitam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virainame Asli Shabapadaраtam Pinashtamam Adarshanar Marmahatam Karotuva Jata Tathava Vidadhatulam Pato Matpranatastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai Namo Mahavaranayo Krishna Prema Prudayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratesha Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamine Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devim Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunavade Vatsatari Satarine. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart with the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested your transcendental energies. They are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a lord on strolling street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotion and service birth after birth. O son of Maharajinanda Krishna, I'm your eternal servitor, yet somehow or rather I'm falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please bring me out from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the Yoloda's feet. Oh my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up and will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? Oh Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and sure remains so. Even if he sunders me rightfully by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not be present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shikyastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1, to blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2, to consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4, to blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures and positions of Vedic version. 5, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6, to give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7, to commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name. 8, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which often Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9, to instruct the fearless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10, to not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachment even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvaivacha paritanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Shri Guru Vandana Mangala Charan ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jota Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padayo Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devim Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunnavadi Patsatyadi Satarine Nama Om Vishnu Padayo Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhana Videvi Deitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namah Madhurjochala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namaste Namaste Gauravane Shimurtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudha Posidanta Dvantarine Namo Guru Kishoraya Sakchavera Gyamurtaye Vipralambhara Sambodhi Panamujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namine Guru Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate
Gaura Vir Bhava Bhumeswami Desta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Manchakalpa Drabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Patranam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Chase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Vataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratur Bangur Mahamanda Matirgati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madunam Mohano Divyad Vinduranya Kalpradumadaha Shimad Ratnagada Simasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamanu Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasa Ranbi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Guru Pranama Prayers Ki Jai. So today's special lecture, we're going to continue what we discussed yesterday about Srila Prabhupada and his lecture called The Absolute Necessity of a Spiritual Master, and Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja offering to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in 1936. So, there was a very important point made yesterday by Srila Prabhupada where he says, we have heard so many times, Mahajano Yena Kata Sapanta. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 17.186. Traverse the trail which your previous acharya has passed. But we have hardly tried to understand the real purport of this sloka. If we scrutinizingly study this proposition, we understand that the Mahajana is one, and the royal road to the transcendental world is also one. Now, that's a very significant statement that Prabhupada has made, and we have to carefully consider this because we can make many mistakes in our life in Krishna consciousness unless we understand what he's saying. Sorry. We can make many mistakes in Krishna consciousness unless we understand what he means. So, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 2nd verse. It says, one can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. These personalities are impersonalists and devotees. So why does it say impersonalists? Because they are striving to merge into the Brahman effulgence, so that is spiritual, as opposed to the Buddhists who want to merge into the unseen and potential state of material nature. So the Buddhists are still in the material world. Whereas Sankaracharya, he upped the ante by saying, look, the ultimate stage is not this avyakta, but it's the Brahman effulgence. So Brahman effulgence is in the spiritual world, and therefore it is a spiritual goal. So therefore the impersonalists, who are not Mayavadis, but genuine impersonalists, they are also considered bona fide transcendentalists. The Mayavadis cannot be considered bona fide transcendentalists because they reject the existence of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the existence in the spiritual world of Vaikuntha and Goloka. So they cannot be counted as bona fide impersonalists. They believe that if when Krishna comes in the material world, he comes in a material body, just like ordinary people. And so their understanding is thwarted. Their progressive understanding of spiritual life is thwarted by their own cancel culture. They cancel Krishna, they cancel Vaikuntha, they cancel Goloka, so they cannot be considered bona fide impersonalists. But there are bona fide impersonalists, such as Sukadeva Goswami and the four Kumaras. They were both bona fide impersonalists. They didn't deny the existence of Krishna or Vaikuntha or Goloka, but they just didn't know. But they left the door open to find out. So here it says, one can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. These personalities are impersonalists and devotees. Whether one wants to merge into the Lord's existence or wants to associate with the personality of Godhead, one should render service to the Mahatmas. For those, the Mahatmas are pure devotees, right? For those who are not interested in such activities, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. The Mahatmas are equipoised. That means they don't get disturbed by anything, right? They're always steady in their determination to be Krishna conscious. They do not see any difference between one living entity and another. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. So they don't say, oh, cows don't have a soul, therefore we can kill them and eat them. No, they understand cows have a soul, ant has a soul, worm has a soul, human beings have a soul, demigods have souls. So they're equipoised, right? And they're not disturbed. And the other point is that they are not prejudiced. They don't say, well, we can eat animals, we can kill them and eat them because they don't have souls. They understand that everyone has a soul. So this is called, they see equality, and they are neutral. Neutrality and equality are above it's above what you would call prasanatma, being self-satisfied in oneself. More advanced than prasanatma is this neutrality and equality. So neutrality means they're not prejudiced against any living entity because they realize that all living entities, that whether they're one cell amoeba or Lord Brahma, they all have an eternal soul that's related to Krishna, and that Krishna is in the heart of every living entity. And they are, there's neutrality, and then equality, they see that all living entities have a soul. Okay, so therefore it continues, he says, for those who are not interested in such activities, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. The Mahatmas are equipoised. They do not see any difference between one living entity and another. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. They are devoid of anger, and they work for the benefit of everyone. They do not behave in any abominable way. Such people are known as Mahatmas. The human body is like a junction. So a junction is like you go to the end of this road. It's like 229th, 228th Street. So you go to the end of it, you come to a junction. There's a farm called the Red Barn. You can't go any further, right? You can only turn left or right. That's called a junction, right? So the body is like a junction. You come to a point where you can't go straight anymore. You either go left or right. You either go back to Godhead or you go back to hell. So there's only two choices there. So it says, the human body is like a junction. One may either take the path of liberation or the path leading to a hellish condition. How one can take these paths is described herein. On the path of liberation, one associates with Mahatmas, and on the path of bondage, one associates with those attached to sense gratification and women, or exploitation of women. And there are two types. So that doesn't mean women can't be Krishna conscious. It just means that these nonsense men who want to exploit women, and that's what they do, they exploit women. And that's the whole idea of Me Too hashtag, right? If you know what that is, you probably don't know. Anybody know? Raise your hand if you know what Me Too hashtag is. Okay, 1, 2, 3. See, nobody else knows. So this was when women started telling the truth about how they had been exploited by powerful men. And all those powerful men had to resign from their powerful positions, except Slick Willie. Slick Willie means the previous president, not Obama, but Clinton. Yeah, his name is Slick Willie, right? He got away with it, but nobody else got away with it. And there's a long list of these very powerful men who exploited women by their position of power, and they all had to resign in, let's say, what is called dishonor. Okay. Okay. So there are two types of Mahatmas: the impersonalist and the devotee. Although their ultimate goal is different, the process of emancipation is almost the same. Both want eternal happiness. One seeks happiness in impersonal Brahman, and the other seeks happiness in the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As described in the first verse, Brahma Sokyam. Brahman means spiritual or eternal. Both the impersonalist and the devotee seek eternal blissful life. In any case, it is advised that one become perfect, in the words of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 2287. Asat Sanga Tyaga, E Vaishnava Achar, Shri Sangi Asadu Krishna Bhakta Ar. To remain unattached to the modes of material nature, one should avoid associating with those who are asat, materialistic. There are two kinds of materialists. One is attached to women and sense gratification, and the other is simply a non-devotee. On the positive side is association with Mahatmas, and on the negative side is the avoidance of non-devotees and women hunters. So what's a hunter? Someone going out with a bow and arrow or a gun, ready to shoot someone dead, right? So these women hunters, they're these crazy men that are seeking to exploit women or children with no mercy, right? So it's basically they kill their innocence by doing that. Okay, so now there's a second verse here, talking about Mahajanayana Sapanta. Prabhupada also quoted, Asat Sangha Tyaga, E Vaishnava Achar, Sri Sangi Eka Asadu, Krishna Bhakta Ar. Now, this is a very interesting verse, and I'm going to explain something now. It's extremely shocking. But first of all, let's see what Prabhupada says. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 12, 195, in the purport, Prabhupada writes, Sangat Sanjayite Kama. This is Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 62nd verse. One develops his consciousness according to society and association. As Srila Nityananda Prabhu admits, a devotee should be very careful when associating with those who are not devotees. When asked by a householder devotee what the behavior of a devotee should be, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately replied, Asat Sangha Tyaga E Vaishnava Achar Sri Sangi Eka Asadu Krishna Bhakta Ar. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 27.87. A Vaishnava, a devotee, should simply discard intimate association with non-devotees. Okay, notice it says intimate. Intimate means you've been invited to lunch with a non-devotee. And I was once invited to lunch by a non-devotee. His name was, he was a very famous man in France. And I was trying to convince him to meet Srila Prabhupada, which he did eventually, right? And he took me to Place de la Concorde, to the Musée de l'Homme, which means the Museum of Humanity, and it's in a place called Concorde Place, which is one of the most beautiful places in Paris, and it has this gigantic Museum of Humanity there. And also, you can also see Napoleon's hospital there. And then you can also see the Eiffel Tower there. So it's a very, very prominent place. And he invited me to have lunch with him. So I went because I didn't want to have lunch with him because I know he was a meat eater. But I wanted him to meet Prabhupada. Okay, so he was the official. His name was Jean Herman. He was the official translator of Aurobindo in French language. So he had written many books about Aurobindo, and he was considered a guru himself. So he was famous. And so we go and sit down, and he calls garçon, the server, and he says, give us your menu. So I got one menu, he got one menu. And I looked at the menu, and my heart sunk because there was nothing there I could order. There was only one thing. There was bread and water, right? Everything else was untouchable. And then, and so he said, he called the garçon, the servant, and he said, okay, well, I want to begin with white wine. And then he ordered some hors d'oeuvres, some silly, stupid stuff that you eat before you get the main meal. And it was like, things with, fish in it and this and that. It was all contaminated stuff. And then he said, and for dinner, I said, for the main course, he said, I want red wine. And then he ordered all kinds of meat and horrible stuff. So then he looked at me and smiled and said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, I think I'll take some bread and water." He said, "Are you sick?" I said, "No, I'm not sick." I said, "I'm a vegetarian." "Oh, you're a vegetarian." So, this guy's very dramatic, right? He has this way of speaking French that's very dramatic. He said, "Oh, je comprends, monsieur. Moi aussi, j'étais un végétarien avant." He said, "I was also a vegetarian before the war. But during the war, I saw so many things, I started eating meat again." So he gave some phony explanation why he was eating meat, right? So, I mean, that's what these people are like. They always have an answer to everything. So anyway, I sort of tolerated this. And then by the time the end of the meal, he was like half drunk already. So he said, "Vous savez, mon ami, il y a quelque chose qui est très intéressant. Moi, je considère que Balaram est le most intéressant de tous les dieux." So he said, "My dear friend, I want to explain something interesting to you. I want to take you and see an old statue of Balaram." He said, "To me, he is the greatest of all the gods." So I was surprised. He's talking about Balaram. I said, "Okay." So after dinner, he takes me through the museum, which is a big museum, and we see this old deity of Balaram. And I was interested. I said, "Why does he say he likes Balaram of all the gods?" So I asked him, I said, "How come you like Balaram more than all the gods?" He said, "Oh, parce qu'il se saoule," which means because he gets drunk. Well, yeah, he drinks, what's the name of that?
Maruni.
What's the name?
Maruni.
Yeah, Marini. Yeah, he drinks. He drinks.
Honey.
In other words, it's like honey that is very highly concentrated, right? And when he said that, I understood. This guy's complete nonsense. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I told him. Then I protested. I said, "No. I said, you don't understand anything." I said that drink that he drinks is not alcoholic. It's very, very sweet. And it doesn't get you drunk. It makes you overwhelmed with love for God, And he just, he refused to accept that, So, we went back and forth. Later on, I wrote him a letter and gave him all the references about the concentrated honey that Balaram was drinking. Okay, so here we see a person who's complete nonsense. But because I want him to meet Prabhupada, I tolerated it. And he did meet Prabhupada. And I told you what happened before, but I'll say it again. So he brings a book with him that he wrote, and it's called Bhakti, le Yoga d'Amour. In other words, Bhakti, the yoga of love. But the word amour in France has a very, let's say, varied interpretation. So usually when people talk of amour, say amour, it's the same word in Spanish also. They use the same word for love. But in French, when you say l'amour, most people understand sex. Right? Now, how do we know that? Well, there's another story I've told before, but I'll tell it again. When I first started preaching in France, I couldn't speak French very well. I didn't know French at all. But by going out in the street all the time, I learned more or less how to speak street French, not proper French, but street French, with a lot of nasty words. So anyway, and by the way, if you don't use nasty words with the French, they don't respect you. You start using nasty French to them, they realize, oh, this guy, he might be American, but he knows our language, So, so anyway, I tried to translate Love Feast into French because I wanted people to come to the Sunday feast, right? So I looked up in the dictionary what word love is. So it's amour, So that's like the title of his book was Bhakti, the yoga d'amour, the yoga of love. So after we started distributing these little pieces of paper inviting people to our Sunday feast, I started getting phone calls from women. And there were strange discussions that were taking place. You know, one woman calls up and says, Monsieur, je suis très intéressé dans votre festival d'amour. I'm very interested in your love feast. I said, well, I said, je suis très heureux. I said, I'm very happy you are. And then she said, qu'est-ce que comment on doit s'habiller? Est-ce qu'on peut venir avec un bikini? She said, how should we dress? Should we come in a bikini? I said, what? I said, what did you say? And she said, should I come in a bikini? I said, a bikini? I said, did you say bikini? She said, yes, I said bikini. I said, oh. I said, no, you should come dressed fully. She said, oh. So she was like a little bit surprised I said that, you know. So afterwards I hung up, you know. So I asked one of the French devotees, I said, what does this mean? And I showed him the pamphlet, I mean the piece of paper. I said, you know, come to the festival of love, right? And he smiled, he said, vous savez, tu connais pas la langue française. You know, he said, you don't really know how to speak French. So he told me most people will interpret that as, you know, something nasty, you know, not what you think it is. So then I realized, you know, you can't just look into the dictionary and translate things. You have to understand the culture and the normal usage of the language, right? So that's just a precursor to understanding something now. This verse, it says, Asat Sangha Tyaga E Vaishnava Achar Shri Sangi Eka Asadu Krishna Bhakta Ar. Now, if you go and talk to people who are part of the fallen sampradayas in Bengal, right? You have the bona fide sampradayas and you have fallen sampradayas or illegal sampradayas. So these are people that claim blood relationship with Nityananda. And they have given a different interpretation to this verse, right? And the way they do it is just rearrange the nouns. So instead of saying Asat Sangha Tyaga E Vaishnava Char, that's correct, right? They say Ekasri Sangis Asadu Krishna Bhakta Ar. Now, just by taking Eka away from Asadu and putting it in front of Sri Sangi, they give a different interpretation to it. Now, what does it mean? Sri Sangi Eka Asadu. That means the association of of a woman, and Eka Asadu, and Eka means one. No, Sri Sangi means the association of women. And then the second part, Eka Asadu, means one non-devotee, right? So by taking Eka and putting it in front of Sri Sangi, their interpretation is, so anyway, the meaning of this is, how do you understand, Lord Chaitanya was asked the question, how do you understand who is a devotee? Right away he said, Asat Sangha Tyaga E Vaishnava Char. A devotee, a Vaishnava, he avoids the association of non-devotees. Right? It's very clear. Then the second part says, Sri Sangi Eka Asadu. One should avoid the association of people who are not sadhus, not non-devotees, and who are attached to exploiting women. That's the meaning of it. And that's how you know, that's Krishna Bhakta Ar. So both lines are emphasizing more or less the same thing. The second line is more specific. The first line says, how do you understand a devotee? That give up the association of non-devotees. But it means intimate association. Just like when I agreed to eat with with Jean Herman, that was intimate association. I'm watching him eat meat. He's talking nonsense the whole time. So you should not do that, right? And but in the second line, there's more information of who you should not associate with. One is the person who's a non-devotee, and the second one is a person who's too attached to exploiting women. Okay, but because these nonsense people in the fallen sampradayas or illegal sampradayas, they move the ekat in front of Sri Sangi, and the interpretation is that you should not associate with a person who's attached to one woman, which means you should associate with many women. And this is the way they interpret this verse.
No.
So now I'm going to read something that's very interesting, where Prabhupada says, why should we avoid the association of non-devotees? He says, thus, while others were yet in the womb of historical oblivion, the sages of India had developed a different kind of civilization, which enabled them to know themselves. They had discovered that we are not at all material entities, but that we are all spiritual. We are all spiritual, permanent, and indestructible servants of the absolute truth. Okay, but previously he says in Asat Sangati, he says, I'm sorry, 1 second. Right. Basically, he's saying, why should you avoid the association of non-devotees and associate only intimately with devotees? Because in the association of devotees, you will not be misled by false interpretations. Whereas in the association of non-devotees, you will always be bombarded by false ideas. See? And a devotee can correct you when you have a false idea. See? So, therefore, it's very dangerous to avoid the association of devotees, because you'll be overwhelmed by false ideas and become misled, and you won't use this lifetime for self-realization, understand your relationship with Krishna, understand the difference between the jiva and the super soul, and understand that everything, including the super soul, including the jiva, including the material nature, is coming from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so that's what I wanted to clarify, so we understand these two major statements. Mahajana yena gata sapanta. When you associate with Mahatmas or pure devotees, they will be able to correct any misconceptions that you have due to false knowledge that you have learned, and they will be able to put you on the right track to go back to Godhead. Okay, and because materialists are very clever people, just by juggling words, they can make any statement they want that is false and get away with it. See? So it's only an association of genuine devotees that these false concepts that have entered in the mind can be corrected. Okay, so now we'll continue with Prabhupada's lecture. And he says, Acharyam mam vijanayan navamanyeta karichit namartya budhya asudyeta sarvadeva mayo guru. One should understand the spiritual master to be as good as I am, said the Blessed Lord. Krishna is saying this. Nobody should be jealous of the spiritual master or think of him as an ordinary man, because the spiritual master is the sum total of all the demigods. That is, the Acharya has been identified with God himself. He has nothing to do with the affairs of this mundane world. He does not descend here to meddle with the affairs of temporary necessities, but to deliver the fallen, conditioned souls, the souls or the entities who have come here to the material world with a motive of enjoyment by the mind and the 5 organs of sense perception. He appears before us to reveal the light of the Vedas and to bestow upon us the blessings of full-fledged freedom, after which we should hanker at every step of our life's journey. So basically, not only he's glorifying the Guru, but he's saying here that people like Mahatmas have come here to the material world with the motive to reveal the light of the Vedas, to make us understand the Shastra correctly. And secondly, to bestow upon us the blessings of full-fledged freedom, being free from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. After which we should hanker at every step of our life's journey. So hanker what? Hanker being free, completely free of birth, death, old age, and disease, of the limitation of time, of the different types of miseries caused by this body, miseries caused by other bodies, miseries caused by natural cataclysmic events, and also be free of lust, anger, greed, madness, illusion, and envy. All these things limit us and makes us think that you only have one life, and when you die, everything is over. So that's a very negative concept of the life of a human being and the potential of a human being. They limit us, right? So the Mahatmas, they liberate us from all these limitations so that we can understand our real potential. Our potential is to go back to Godhead and have eternal life and be with Krishna and all the eternally liberated souls in the spiritual world, which are 3 to 1. There's 3 liberated souls for every conditioned soul. So there's a huge population of people in the spiritual world, much bigger than the population in the material worlds. And they're all purified, pure, and they're all ecstatically in love with Krishna and experiencing transcendental pastimes all the time. That's what we really should hanker for, right? We shouldn't hanker for exploiting people for sense gratification and for making money by exploiting their work. Okay, so transcendental knowledge of the Vedas was first uttered by God to Brahma, the creator of this particular universe. From Brahma, the knowledge descended to Narada, from Narada to Vyasadeva, from Vyasadeva to Madhva. And in this process of disciplic succession, the transcendental knowledge was transmitted to one disciple to another till it reached Lord Gauranga, or Lord Chaitanya. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who posed as the disciple and successor of Sri Ishwarapuri. The present Acharya is the 10th disciplic representative from Sri Rupa Goswami, the original representative of Lord Chaitanya, who preached this transcendental tradition in its fullness. The knowledge that we receive from our Guru Deva is not different from that imparted by God himself, and the succession of the Acharyas in the preceptorial line of Brahma. We adore the auspicious day as Sri Vyasa Puja Tithi, because the Acharya is the living representative of Vyasadeva, the divine compiler of the Vedas, the Puranas, the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata, and the Srimad Bhagavatam. One who interprets the divine sound or Sabda Brahma by his imperfect sense perception cannot be a real spiritual guru, because in the absence of proper disciplinary training under the bona fide Acharya, the interpreter is sure to differ from Vyasadeva as the Mayavadis do. Srila Vyasadeva is the prime authority of Vedic revelation, and therefore such an irrelevant interpreter cannot be accepted as the guru or Acharya, howsoever equipped he may be with all the acquirements of material knowledge. This is a huge statement by Prabhupada. So I'm going to give an example now. I'm going to let Madhvacharya give the example of Asat Guru. What did he say that you heard? This is a practical example right now
Yes.
of what Prabhupada just explained here. Go ahead.
Correct. So this is in 2010.
Speak louder.
This is in 2010. So in Bellevue Maiden Bar Center, there was one big program. Myself and Vedant Prabhu, we went to see how they organize their program. So this Asat Guru, his opening
He's
statement was
known as Sadguru, but we call him Asatguru.
yeah. So his opening statement was, "Why do you care what Rama said, what Krishna said? I am right here in front of you. I am telling you. You believe me."
This is their trick. See, they have to deny the existence of Rama and Krishna and the Vedas, right? He also canceled the Vedas when in that statement, right? So he say, why you need that? Why do we need to read an old book like that, 5,000 years old, when I am here, right? And why do you have to think about Rama and Krishna when I am here, right? So that means it cancels the whole Vedic tradition. He cancels the Acharyas. He cancels Krishna and Rama. And he says, basically, I'm God. You just listen to what I say. And people are dumb enough to accept this. Thousands of people are stupid enough to accept such an outrageous statement by a nonsense person. See? This is how bad the educational system is in India. Just like yesterday, I did a program in a family's house, and I asked the question of the husband and the wife, and I said, "Did you ever see your grandmother?" And they both said yes. And I said to the gentleman, I said, "What was she doing?" He said, "Well, she was always cooking." I said, "How did it taste?" He said, "It was wonderful." I said, "Did you ever learn any recipes from her?" He said, "No." Here he has a grandmother who's a fabulous cook, right? And I said, "What else did she do?" He said, "Well, she's like you." What do you mean? I said, "She always had this hand in the beanbag, chanting mantra." I said, "Did you know what the mantra is?" He said, "No, I never learned the mantra." This is true. Isn't that? There's been a loss of passation of culture in India for at least 2, 3, maybe 4 generations. That's why today people are dumb enough to accept someone like Asad Guru as a guru. He's not a guru. He's a charlatan. But yet they accept him as if, oh, he knows the truth. He's so logical. Yes. You have to come and speak in a microphone. Okay, speak loudly.
So I don't think because I did listen to his lectures, I don't think he denies the Vedic culture or Rama or Krishna, but they don't also teach from that. He will use it when required. Like that I have seen.
No,
So
he
that's even more confusing.
he piggybacks on them just to give the impression of being bona fide, but he doesn't believe in them. But you heard what he said, right? So because he's preaching more and more in the Western world, he has to say something. Right? Just like Gandhi, he writes a purport to the Bhagavad Gita, wrote his own book, interpreted the whole Bhagavad Gita as being about nonviolence. That's complete nonsense. There's no question the Bhagavad Gita is about nonviolence. But there is bona fide violence, that is, protecting the principles of God consciousness. So therefore, he asked Arjuna to fight and to kill. In fact, we read something yesterday. It was very interesting in a purport, where in the Bhagavad Gita, where Prabhupada writes that Arjuna was happy to kill Bhisma and Duryodhana. Now, that's a shocking statement, right? It's right in the Bhagavad Gita. He was happy to kill them because he knew, why does it say he's happy? Because he knew that they both have an eternal soul, that they never are actually killed. So these statements are shocking, but yet they're actually factual. So, and by the way, how did Arjuna kill Bhisma Pitamaha? He was told by Bhisma Pitamaha how to kill him. It's not that he killed him. He asked permission of Bhisma Pitamaha, and Bhisma also told him how he could kill him, right? So there are many things people don't understand about the Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, they piggyback on the Bhagavad Gita like Gandhi has done, and like maybe Sadhguru is doing, just to give people a feeling of, as you say, throwing dust into their eyes, right? So they close their rational sense and just believe everything he says. So they say, well, he believes in Krishna also, and Rama, and he mentions the Vedas, but he's not teaching the Vedas, nor is he teaching surrender to Krishna or Rama, right? Okay, but that was a good comment that you made. But you have to understand they're using it to piggyback on something that most people accept as bona fide. Okay, so sampradaya vihina ye mantras te nisfala mata. Unless you are initiated by a bona fide spiritual master in the disciplic succession, the mantra that you might have received is without any effect. So, I told the story yesterday of my friend who left Prabhupada and got bought a mantra from the Guru, Mahesh. So he bought a mantra for $100 dollars, 700 francs, which is about $100. And what was the mantra? Nishingha. And I told him, are you crazy? I said, Prabhupada gave you the whole Nishinga prayer. And you paid $100 for a one-word mantra, Nishinga. I said, you're completely crazy. So this is the way people, even an initiated devotee, right? He was twice initiated. He had first and second initiation. And he walks away from Prabhupada and pays $100 to get a bogus so-called mantra, right? So this is how stupid people are. And why are they so stupid? Well, because they're not following the regulative principles. Prabhupada explains, whenever you don't follow regulative principles, your mind plays tricks on you. See? And also, there's another interesting phrase that Prabhupada, said. He said that that variety is the spice of life, right? If there's no variety in your life, you get bored. You know where the worst place is in whole existence? Yes. The Brahmajyoti, because there's no variety there. You see? Variety is the spice of life. Like let's say you're living in a very dull atmosphere where there's no variety. It's always the same old every day. Same thing every day. You would get bored. You would say, Mom, I'm bored. I don't feel any enthusiasm at all. Everything is boring, that you're doing. So you see, the most boring place that you can go to is the Brahmajyoti. There's no variety at all. Right? It is, it's considered like spiritual suicide. Why? Because there's no devotional service in the Brahmajyoti. It's the only place. There's devotional service in hell. There's devotional service in the material world. There's devotional service in the upper parts of the material world where the Devatas are. There's devotional service in Vaikuntha. There's devotional service in Goloka. There's only one place where there's no devotional service. That's the Brahmajyoti. And there's no variety at all. It's not a wonder that people fall down from it. See? And they will fall down. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. Are there any questions? Obviously, I said a bunch of shocking things today, so you must have some questions.
Hey, Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
You talked about there are 3 times more souls
In the spiritual
than spiritual world. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Maharaj?
Well, it's called Tripada. The spiritual world is 3 times greater than the material world. That means that most of the people, most of the jivas are in the spiritual world. So we have to recognize who we are. We walked away from God because we became attracted to something in the material world. Just like one time in Paris, we were doing Harinam Sankirtan in this very, let's say, bad neighborhood. It was a neighborhood where it's called Pigalle. It's got the word pig in it, right? Pigalle. Pigalle is where all the girly shows are, naked women. They don't walk around, but you're invited into their theater where there's these naked shows, right? So we were chanting. We didn't go inside any of those places, right? But we were doing Sankirtan there because there's a lot of people there, right? A lot of people go there. It's like a major attraction of Paris. So we were chanting near the exit of the subway, one subway, right? It's called the Metro in Paris. And we were chanting Hare Krishna, you know, and we were really excited that day. And then we heard some people walking up, and it was a family. It was a husband, wife, and 2 kids. And they had just arrived in Paris from Delhi. And they were carrying their baggages. They didn't even go to a hotel. They're carrying their baggages. Probably they were going to get a hotel in Pigalle, right? And when they came up to the top, and we saw them, right? And the husband said, "This is it. We're here at Pigalle." You know, I couldn't believe it. They came all the way from Delhi to come to Pigalle, which is really a low-class place, right? And this is what they were considering was their vacation. This is how crazy people have become, you see. And why? Because they lost their culture. The passation of culture broke down in India, you know, for at least 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 generations. So this is a dangerous thing. And why did Prabhupada comes to America and makes a whole bunch of devotees. Why does he bring them back? And they're all white. Why does he bring them back to India? Because he realized how fallen India had become. And he wanted to help these people who should be following Sanatana Dharma, but they're not. They're following some bogus Dharma, just like the bogus Sampradayas. They're misinterpreting the Shastra and giving all kinds of false ideas. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. Any other questions? Yes.
Maharaj, so yesterday my daughter was asking me a question. Why are all the people different? Why does someone have white complexion, black complexion, different kind of complexions and all? So I said you should ask Maharaja. But today you mentioned that Prabhupada said variety is the spice of life. Is that a good answer? Is that like related?
No, he was asked that question, and he said that there is variety and oneness in the spiritual world. You know, Krishna himself, in 4 yugas, he appears in a different color. In the Satya Yuga, he appears in a white color. In Treta Yuga, he appears in a red color. In the Dwapara Yuga, he appears in a black color. In Kali Yuga, he appears in a golden color. So this is variety, but all is one. It's the same Krishna. He's not different when he's appearing red or white or yellow or golden. It's the same Krishna. It's just variety. Variety is the spice of life. Okay, you could use that phrase. But you have to say that Krishna himself appears in different colors. Lord Ramachandra is a dark greenish color, right? So, yeah, these are varieties. This doesn't mean that just like if you pierce the skin of a black man, the blood is red. If you pierce the skin of a white man, the blood is red, you see. So as soon as you get past that not even an eighth of an inch of skin, it's all the same. You know, there's blood, there's plasma, there are veins, there's heart, there's gallbladder, there's liver, there's stool, there's urine, all that stuff. It's all the same. It doesn't matter. It's just skin deep. these differences. It's not profoundly deep. And when you go deeper, you see the soul. Now you understand all the souls are equal, right? They're all eternal. Right? Okay? Yes.
Maharaj, Hare Krishna Maharaj,
Yes.
somebody asked me this question, I'll ask for them. In order to learn about Krishna, do we have to deny the existence of Jesus or Allah?
I'm an example. I'm born a Christian. I'm baptized a Christian. I was an altar boy for years, right? I have never rejected Jesus Christ. Altar boy means I go up there with the priest and I assist the priest in all the rituals, right? And I lived with a priest for several years, and he was teaching me the Bible, and we were talking, all the time. And I used to go with him to perform the what you call the Eucharist. That's what they say. That's their ritual, the Eucharist. Where they bless the wine and they bless the little unleavened bread, and they give communion. And so I was right up there for years. I have never rejected. In fact, oftentimes I say I'm still a Christian, right? And then when I see Indian Christians, I say, frankly, these are not Christians, these people. They're not being taught love of God. They're being taught hatred of Hinduism. That's not Christianity, right? So, yeah, I'm an example. Right? You don't have to reject Allah. You don't have to reject Krishna. You don't have to reject Jesus. I mean, you don't have to reject Khuda. Khuda is the name of God in Farsi, right? In fact, when I say goodbye to Farsi people, I say Khuda Hafez. I say, may God go with you. Right? They're a little surprised that I know that. So you see, why would you deny the existence of the pure devotee of God like Jesus or Muhammad, or the incarnation of the Lord himself, right? He comes sometimes as Buddha. He comes sometimes as Parasuram. These are all expansions of the Lord. So we don't reject any of the different bona fide avatars of Krishna or pure devotees. Prabhupada, he calls Muhammad, he said, Hazrat Muhammad. Hazrat means it's the highest honorable name in Arabic. He refers to Muhammad as Hazrat Muhammad, right? And Jesus Christ, he said, we accept Jesus Christ as the Son of God, and he's a pure devotee. He's a good son of God. Yeah, there's many bad sons. So no, the answer is no.
Because sometimes when we say there is only one God, when we teach that, people might think, okay, you're denying like all the other religions, and I think that's where maybe the confusion might be coming from.
No, when we say, or anyone says, there's only one God, that means the demigods are not the supreme personality of Godhead. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that we reject Allah or we reject Jesus or whatever. No. Prabhupada didn't reject Jesus. He didn't reject Muhammad. He didn't reject, when you, for example, the Sikhs in the Granth Sahib, they have bhajans glorifying Krishna and Rama. Right? You know what they say today? They didn't say this in the time of Guru Nanak, but today they say that's not the same Rama and Krishna as the Hindus. They say that. Yeah. These are the fanatic Sikhs, right? This is how bad things are, right? So people get confused. They say, well, there's so many differences, I can't figure out what is what. I'm putting an X on religion, because this is too much nonsense. Well, it's true. There's too much nonsense. That's why a lot of people get disgusted, But eventually, if you come in contact with genuine devotees, now there can be genuine devotees. Like, for example, one time, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, he asked his disciple to come with him to see the Sankaracharya of Kanchipuram, right? There's 4 Sankaracharyas, right? There's Kanchipuram, there's in Singeri and so forth. Yeah, Jagannath Puri, right? So, and his disciples said, no, why should we go? He's a Mayavadi. He said, no, just listen to me, you'll come. So he reluctantly went with his guru, right? So they go to see the Sankaracharya at Kanchipuram. There's a huge line, right? But somebody told the Sankaracharya at Kanchipuram that there were 2 devotees from ISKCON in line. He said, bring them to the front right away. So there's a huge line, right? It could take like hours to see him. They were brought directly right in front of him. And usually he was reclining, right? He was very old at that time. He asked to be propped up and with pillows. And they called them to come, there's like a fence around them, right? They came into the fence. He told them, bring them in. And he started talking to them. And he said, when I was a young brahmachari, your guru's guru came to Kanchipuram. And he said, and we were overwhelmed by him. We had never met a person like him before. He had so much knowledge. We just surrendered to him. So then Bhakti Swarup Damodar looked at his disciple and he said, you see, he's a devotee. So Prabhupada also has said there are some devotees amongst the Mayavadis and there's some Mayavadis amongst the devotees. You see? So we should never put an X on anyone. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Okay, we'll stop right there.
And by definition, God is only one, because there is no one equal to him or above him.
Yes.
By definition, he is only one.
Yeah. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
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 Bandhu Mohi Savadana Mate Bandhu जाहर प्रसादे भाई हे भव तोरिया जाय कृष्ण प्राप्ति होय जहाँ होय ते कृष्ण प्राप्ति होय जहाँ होय ते गुरुमुख पद्मा वाक्या चित्ते ते कोरिया क्या आरणा कोरियो माने आशा आरणा कोरियो माने आशा श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जते वेद गाय जहाँ रचरितो वेद गाय जहाँ रचरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु लोके ना लोके रजीवाना हा प्रभु कोर दया देहो मोरे पादचया हे बेजाय गुशुक त्रिभुवाना शीला प्रभुपाद पतिता पवाना प्रभुपाद पतिता पवाना जय प्रभुपदा 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 जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा 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 शिला प्रभुपदा विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे और हरि बोल तगोर हरि बोल
जय ओम विष्णुपाद Paramahansa Pararajagachasta Kadasakarashi Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Swami Kunda Radha Kali Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guru all glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani Ki Jai Namaste Saraswati Devi So, anyone do the homework? Did you do the homework? Okay. Oh, Go ahead.
The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service.
I bow down to his lotus feet with
Great honor and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O my master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. I take shelter of your lotus feet. Path ki jai.
Hari Bol. Yes, Prabhu.
My sister-in-law.
Huh?
My sister-in-law.
Yes.